けどなんか雰囲気が違う気もするんですよね。
The effects of becoming a crazy cat lady.
誰かの命じゃなくて私を踊り
We opened this week with Komachi again cleaning up around her parents' shop and finding a little bit of litter. Well, someone's gonna die later. Though, before anything else, we also had to establish how Komachi was relatively popular, from little girls to gossip moms. In the case of the latter, she had taken to one of Komachi's reviews in the local newsletter.
そうそう、コーヒーこんな小さなサイズ出てきて。
Just play it.
ちっさ
I'll look for any excuse to use that clip. However, Yelp reviews weren't exactly becoming of a former award-winning writer, but there was little Komachi could do about it due to her writer's block. Hey, how did you swipe that from Toys Writer's Room? Later, one of their shop's customers became another victim of the eco-terrorist moth.
持田さん、急に倒れたんですって。
And to think, he was just enjoying his canned coffee this morning. What could have happened? Komachi, of course, added this to their Shao map and started to notice a fairly obvious pattern to their attacks, at least for any Precure series not named Happiness Charge. They were all focusing on just their town's general area. She shared this intel with Koko and Nozomi and theorized that maybe similar attacks had happened in the past, which, with how unreceptive many people have been to the current attacks, seems a little implausible unless this town is full of that one lady from Power Rangers.
Now you know, dear, there's no such thing as monsters.
Though to be fair, nothing had been written in the history books, meaning that Belle had likely been more docile in the past, which was even kind of confirmed by the end of this episode. Regardless, this brought up the conversation that maybe they could get some more intel from someone who had been in the area for a good long while.
教室に夏目漱石が来たら面白いだろうなって思ったりして。
I'm pretty sure he would be a nervous wreck. Not even really kidding, look it up. Sure enough, the gossip mom came in as their Deus Ex Karen and suggested that they meet someone named Sanai. And had it not been spoiled by the preview from last week, we would have gotten a nice surprise that she was talking about Sanai Yukishiro, aka Honoka's grandmother, aka Granny Goku.
さあ、よこすんだ。
Also, if we consider that the All-Star films are canon, and while I would understand Precure not knowing about each other's relatives, shouldn't I have a few photos of Honoka lying around revealing her relationship with her? Or is there some sort of limit to the series crossovers they can do in the show? Whatever, stuff like that really didn't bother me too much, at least compared to what's coming up. As it turned out, Sanai was aware of the shadow attacks, and while she didn't exactly stay on the subject, being an old lady and all that, she did provide an important clue and bit of world building that was related to her backstory, you know, that one. Yeah, they actually called back to one of the brighter spots of the second half of the OG series when she revealed that she was a survivor of the 1945 firebombings of Tokyo during the Second World War. Okay, maybe not exactly the brightest episode, but definitely one of the most well-written of that series, where they had to overcome some really heart-wrenching drama that was even based off of some real-life events and...
時計塔がそんな戦火の中残ってい
Pardon?
時計塔の鐘は鳴り響きました。人々の背中を押すように。
Yeah, no.
いえ、そこに町なんてなか。どこまでも続く瓦礫の原。
You lie! You lie!
Yeah, I get the feeling that people are going to disagree with me on this, but I'm not crazy about this retcon on Sanai's backstory. I mean, to me, it was a much more powerful tale when there was literally nothing left for her after the bombings, except for that little voice from a still mostly dormant Mipple cheering her on. She represented that small bit of hope that we have to hold on to, even in the face of absolute despair and pandemonium. Well, now we can include a whole ass clock tower that very magically survived and was still functional thanks to Belle. And yes, this does strengthen the villainous' backstory, but really, at what cost? Like, what was stopping them from making a new one-off senior citizen to exposit all this stuff to them? But then, I guess you couldn't call back to one of the best regarded episodes of the original series, and even bring in these guys. With all that said, I did like some of the theming here with planting seeds for future generations after such tragic events. It's clearly meant to play into the show's themes about the future, and how we have to build better tomorrows for the next generations. Again, I just wish it didn't come at the cost of devaluing Mipple's contributions, who didn't even cameo here in her phone form. That would have at least been an unintrusive and cute little callback. Anyway, Sanai also revealed the name of the former guardian angel of this town, Belle. With that, they head back to town while Masako Nozawa got another paycheck on top of all of her DPZ royalties. The trio examined the clock tower, in particular the bell, as in the actual thing that rung, though also had the villainous name Bell carved into it, and yeah, that's not confusing. Also, I feel like we're forgetting something in regards to this particular episode. Well, no time to think about that, as Bell just launched another shadow attack out of nowhere, and wait, is that Daisuke from Fresh and Akko from Sweet? And they dyed their hair black? Look, Akko, if you want to go through your emo phase, you really gotta work on your attire. Kind of like what you did as a kid. Anyway, we got an okayish fight this week when Nozomi fought off the baddies along with Komachi. Oh yeah, she was a thing in this episode. Also, yeah, they really didn't do much of anything with her writer's block subplot, just had her appreciate the town a little more, even though she was already doing a lot of work for it, so yeah, not much of an arc, like, at all. But I guess it was enough to earn her a time flower, and somehow an even more half-assed regression sequence than Rin's. Anyway, they defeated the baddies, and Komachi just kind of got a new idea for her book. Like, seriously, can at least one interesting happen before we end this episode? Thank you. So we ended the episode with finally some repercussions from using the time flowers, so at least this show is probably going to end the way it should, with our heroines realizing that they can't rely on the past forever, unlike the writers of the show. Yeah, this episode was a bit of an overstuffed mess. While some of the ideas in this story could work on their own when they're all put together in one episode with a limited runtime, stuff like the supposed spotlight character of this one kind of get lost in the shuffle. And I say ideas because I'm not exactly crazy about how they utilize Sanai's backstory for the sake of this show. So poignant was naturally how it tied into real life and very tragic events of World War II. Along with Hiroshima and Nagasaki, much of Japan was burnt down with little hope of any sort of salvation. Thus the idea that the symbolic little hope Sanai held in her hands with Mippo kept her going and even eventually building a successful and fulfilling life afterwards made it all the more triumphant. But I guess that's not nearly enough hope, so why don't we throw in a whole damn clock tower into that as well? Again, my biggest issue here is that it just feels intrusive to an otherwise perfectly good backstory. Sanai didn't need to provide a lore to Belle, and this role could have been easily fulfilled by any one-off senior citizen character. But then, I guess they couldn't pull on those nostalgia strings by bringing back a past character and referencing a fan-favorite episode. And yes, I know I geeked out on the Digimon references from last week, but those were ultimately indirect, and more importantly, didn't take focus off the spotlight characters of that episode in Urara and Syrup. Meanwhile, Komachi was a bit of an afterthought here, ultimately just being the person who got them on the track of being Sanai before some random lady told them about her. And from there, we got Sanai's revised backstory, a fight with the shadows where she just kind of got her time flower, and the after effects on Nozomi. This was disappointing for me because I was hoping that they'd talk more about Komachi's writer's block and how she could have overcome it by like maybe taking a break or maybe talking to someone for inspiration. You know, things they had Mashiro do last week. And yeah, you could say they did the latter with their talk with Sanai, but again, Komachi already loved their town and was even doing a lot of community work for it. And the only difference after their talk was that she was thinking more about its past, and that was enough to give her ideas for her next novel. Again, there are good ideas and themes here about appreciating the past whilst looking towards the future that are also working towards developing the main story of the show, but as an individual episode with so many different elements, it's just not congealing well in my opinion. Thus, overall, this was a mixed episode for me. Interesting ideas and significant development for the main plot aside, it's just a pity that Komachi didn't get nearly as much focus as the rest of her team, and instead we just got more of a recap of a classic episode of the franchise. Now, I guess even in a completely different franchise, the character voiced by Masako Nozawa has to steal the spotlight. Hope everyone's having a nice week, and maybe even starting to put out their Christmas ornaments. That's not an ornament. Not saying you have to rush or anything like everyone else, but we should appreciate the holiday season while they're around, mostly for their sales and everything. Look forward to more gifts on this channel, and do look forward to more gifts on this channel. And until next time, though, farewell for now, my friends, and... Okay, I got some tuna in the pantry. Just stop throwing those poor little guys, alright? Yeesh.